everybody, my name is Ellery and I'm part of the students team here at Covenant. We are so glad that you decided to stop by our YouTube channel today. If you are new here, text the word new to the number on the screen and we would love to get to know you and send you a gift. And now let's jump into our teaching time. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm Jeremy, one of the pastors here at Covenant Church, the director of outreach, and we are on this series called Another Series on Love. And Joe Cox, he started the sermon series last week, and we're in the second week here. I want to tell you this story about love with my wife, Sarah. When we first were married, I was really in love with her. I'm still in love with her now. I mean, I don't know if I said that correctly. Yeah, I love you wherever you are. You're over there somewhere. Okay. First thing, one of our first arguments was over my hair gel. And we were sharing the same bathroom after we got married. We came back from a honeymoon, moved to our apartment together, and I put my hair gel on the counter in the bathroom, and I put my comb there. And she says to me, "You need to take that off of there, it's messy." I said, "No, it's not. It's not messy." She's like, "Yes, it is." I said, "No, it's not." I said, I've put my hair gel on my counter for years. Why do I need to change that now? She's like, "It's messy, you can't put it there." So I said to her, "I'm a grown man, and I'm gonna put my hair gel wherever I wanna put my hair gel." No, I didn't say that to her. I thought it. But it was one time in my life that I didn't actually say what I thought, okay? So she won that argument, and forever, the hair gel belongs in the cabinet, in the cabinet, closed, not on the counter. And sometimes when I see my hair gel there, I have flashback memories of that argument. I didn't expect this when we're in love with each other. And we had some friends over to our house just a few weeks ago, and they're looking through some pictures of us when we first got engaged. And my friend was looking at the picture of me engaged with Sarah, and he's looking at me, and he looked at me, he's like, "Wow, what 15 years does to a man." I was like, "Dude, I thought you're my friend. I don't look that much different, do I?" And then I was shocked as someone else came over and they're looking at the wedding picture of me and Sarah standing there on the altar, holding hands. And she's like, "That's Sarah, but who's that?" I was like, "It's me. And she's like, "I don't see it." Well, Sarah didn't get married to somebody else. It's me, I swear. She's like, "I still don't see it." I was like, "I have a beard. I guess I'm older now." I'm like, "Do I look that much different? I hope I don't," okay? So, when we talk about love, we all desire to be loved. We all desire to have acceptance from one another in marriage, wherever it is, in our small groups, in our church. We all have this desire of connection and meaning with other people. And today, we're going to talk about love, and we're going to answer the first question of what is love? Now, Joe Cox, he started the sermon off last week, and as soon as I told him one of those questions I was going to ask him, he texted me this song, "What is love? Oh, baby, don't hurt me no more." And that song has been in my mind. It corrupted my mind, so it's corrupting your mind. And that song was in the 80s, and I didn't like 80s music. At all. Sorry if you do. I hate to break it to you. But that song's been on my mind. If you don't know that song, well, don't Google it, okay? It's not the greatest song. But that's this question that we're going to ask. What is love? And we find in our culture that our culture defines love in a whole bunch of different ways that aren't quite correct. And the first way the culture says is that love is a feeling. That love should give us an emotional high. That love's got to be thrilling, that it should happen in the moment, that you should walk down the street and boom, you should just fall in love with somebody. That love should give you a sense of euphoria, that you should be walking on the clouds, walking around like that. That's not really what love is. That's more like dopamine, serotonin firing off in our brains, the chemical reactions. Love can be a feeling, but it's so much more than that. Another thing that we hear our culture say about love, we hear this all the time, If you love me, you will accept me. And what people really mean is that if you love me, you will accept what I do. You will accept all of my actions, no matter whether my actions are right or whether my actions are wrong. And when someone chooses to live a different lifestyle or makes choices that are hurtful or detrimental to their lives, we would say, I love you as a person, but I don't agree with what you are doing. We can accept a person, but we don't accept their behavior. We would say that your behavior is wrong, that your behavior is not right. If you have kids, you know this. You love your kids, but you don't accept all of their behaviors. It's the same with other people, that you can love them, but you say your actions aren't the right actions. Another thing that our culture would tell us is that love is just about feeling good. It's not. Love doesn't feel good all the time. Loving others often doesn't feel good. Love can hurt, it can be painful, and it's just not that way. Another last thing that I wrote down that I think is kind of in our culture today is that romantic love will just kind of fulfill you and provide the deepest satisfaction known to humanity. Now, that romantic love in marriage, it should give us satisfaction, but another human can't bear the weight of your soul, of everything that is within you. As humans, we have a craving for love that cannot be fully filled by another human. A desire for love and acceptance, it is unending. And we can only find that deepest sense of love and in God who will satisfy us. And so those are some things within our culture. But when we turn to the Bible and look for a definition of love, I really think this is the best definition of love. This first thing is that love is Jesus Christ dying on the cross. That's what love is. It is Jesus suffering for the world, suffering for humanity, dying on the cross, a terrible death. 1 John 3:16 says this. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. That's a great definition of love. What is love? Jesus dying for humanity, dying for the world. John defines what love is, because our source of knowing about Jesus is the Bible, and the Bible then points us back to Jesus. And when we look at Jesus' death on the cross, when we look at it from not a spiritual point of view, but a human point of view, it looks horrendous, it looks disgusting, it is painful. He's a man dying on the cross, he's tortured, he's bloody, he's beaten, he's suffering, he can't breathe, he's pulling himself up on the cross, just a painful, agonizing death. And back in Roman times, they killed thousands and thousands of people. You can walk down the street and there are all these people on the cross dying and suffering. But Jesus' death was different, because this greatest act of violence, this great act of violence done upon Jesus becomes the greatest act of love the world has ever known. Sinful men killed Jesus Christ. They put him on the cross. It says that Satan entered Judas, and then Judas betrayed him, and then these men crucified him, and violence is turned upon its head as God allows the torture device of the cross to become the greatest story of love the world has ever seen. Jesus, he gave up his life for people who hated him. Jesus died for people who opposed him. Jesus died for people who were in direct opposition to him. And so from a human point of view, the story doesn't really make sense. Why would God love humans who reject him? It's because that's who God is. God is love. That's his very nature. That's his very character in and of himself. So how do we actually receive this love? How do we access the love of God that's unending, that can flow to each and every one of us? It's quite simple. As we receive love by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. That's how we access it, by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. Other words for faith are trust or believe in, and that's all we have to do, a simple act of faith. In 1 John 3:23, we see John say this, and this is his commandment, we must believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another, just as he commanded us. When we believe in Jesus Christ, we receive eternal life. And we get this by faith. And faith is not magical thinking. Faith is not going against all the evidence that is out there and believing that something that isn't true is true. Faith is taking a reasonable step towards what really seems to be true, and we don't throw reason out the window when we have faith. Reason always leads us to faith, and I'm betting my life on the fact of Jesus revealed in the Gospels that he's not a lunatic or that he's not a liar. I believe that he's the Lord. I'm betting my faith, my purpose, my life, everything on that. And faith isn't irrational thinking, but it's simply an act of trust. And when you trust in Jesus, you're trusting in the very nature and character of God. Because faith always has an object. Faith is placed in something. And your faith is only as good as the object in which you place your faith. So I hedge my bets on my faith placed in Jesus Christ, the God of the universe who created everybody. We should place our faith in him to receive this love from God. Now, this third question is, what happens when we receive true love? So we know what the love of God is. We receive it by faith. Well, what happens to us, or what should happen to us when we receive this true love? Well, in the passage we're looking at in 1 John 3 this morning, there's this example of Cain and his brother Abel, and there's a lack of love that's within Cain. And we see this in 1 John 3:11 through 13. John says this is the message you have heard from the beginning. We should love one another. We must not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and killed his brother. And why did he kill him? Because Cain had been doing what was evil, and his brother had been doing what was righteous. So don't be surprised, dear brothers and sisters, if the world hates you. So John, he gives us an example of Cain and Abel. And Adam and Eve, we believe, were the first created human beings, and then they had children. In Genesis chapter 4, Cain was the firstborn human, and then his brother Abel came along later. And Abel was a shepherd, and Cain he cultivated the ground, and they both presented gifts to God, and God didn't accept Cain's gift, and then Cain becomes really angry, and he doesn't deal with the anger towards God and then towards his brother. And then we see this happen in Genesis chapter 4, kind of the backstory to it in verses 6 and 7. Why are you so angry? The Lord asked Cain. Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master. God tells Cain that sin is crouching at the door of his life, at the door of his mind. And Cain allows sin to remain in his life, and then anger brews in his heart, and Cain takes matters into his own hands, and he kills his brother in cold blood, and the firstborn human becomes the first murderer. Pretty amazing, pretty crazy that he would actually kill him. Now, I was looking up examples of this, and we see this in nature today, in the world. We see this within animals. It's pretty crazy that there's these birds that are born, eggs are in a nest, and then when one bird cracks out of the egg, it goes around the nest and it looks for all the other eggs, and then it pushes his brothers and sisters out and dies, like kills them. Think about the family counseling that bird's going to have to go through, later on. What was your life like? Well, I killed my brothers and sisters the day I was born because my mother didn't care for me. She was gone. She disappeared, And so this bird does that. And I read about these hyenas in Tanzania where twins are born. In 9% of the cases, the twin actually killed its brother or sister so that it could have access to its mother's milk and resources. I learned a new word this week. It's called siblicide, when you kill your brother or sister. Pretty crazy that happens in nature. Now, I made a mistake. I was learning this word. I told my kids, I learned a new week. It's called siblicide. And they're like, what's that? And I told them the definition. They're like, I would never kill my brother or sister. I'm like, good. Figuratively or literally? Okay, let's not do that. Okay? And so John, he tells us that Cain belonged to the evil one. He belonged to Satan. And Satan was a murderer. Satan was the father of lies. He is the father of lies. And lies crept into Cain's mind, and then he believed them, and then he acted out on them because he lived a life of anger. You see, anger always says, you owe me. When we get angry at someone, when you do or when I do, we're saying that they owe us something. You believe that there's a debt towards you that has accrued. Anger also says, I'm going to get back at you, or I want to have power over you. And when we express anger, we can't really get the true love of God. Because when we're angry at someone, you believe that they owe you something. They owe you a conversation, or they owe you a chance. They owe you a second chance. They owe you affirmation or affection. They owe you a call. They owe you time. They owe you the truth. They owe you to work harder. They owe you certain behaviors. They owe you money. They owe you an explanation. But how do we actually get rid of this anger? Well, we have to deal with it and confess it and have it removed so that we can have the love of God in our lives to then love other people. Here's a very practical example of this. Just a few years ago, I was kind of struggling with anger. I was struggling at getting angry, and I was thinking there were some people in my past that frustrated me that I was angry at, and none of you know them. I'm not even using anybody here as an example, but I was really angry at them because they had blocked gospel initiatives and blocked ministry initiatives. And when I would think of them, when their faces would flash before my mind, I'd think, I was like, there's something wrong with my heart if that's the reaction when I think of these people. And so I decided to go to a prayer session here at Covenant and try and deal with kind of this anger and frustration in my heart and in my soul. And I was led through a time of confessing my sin, confessing my anger, forgiving them, and being in a right relationship with them and with God, and it was very helpful. But then during this prayer session, the person also asked me to do this, to pause and stop, and then ask God to reveal to me the very first time in my life that I expressed anger as a child. And I thought, what does this have to do with anything right here? I mean, what does this have to do with what I'm facing right now? So I'm like, okay, I'll pause and I'll stop, and I wait. I said, God, reveal to me the first time that I was angry. And I was transported back to when I was 6 years old, a child. And I remember standing in the kitchen with my mother, and my mother made me do chores. Now, what little 6-year-old boy wants to do chores? I don't want to do that, on a Saturday or something. And I was upset at her, and I had in my mind a plan. I thought the next time my mother asks me to vacuum, I'm going to get back at her. And so I remember her passing me the vacuum, and I yelled at her, I hate you, Mom. And then she broke down, kind of crying, and I could feel at this point as a 6-year-old, wow, I could make my mom cry. I kind of felt power of anger that I could change her or manipulate her. I still remember that feeling. And now I had a not childhood, very faithful parents that loved the Lord and loved me. I have a great relationship with my parents to this day. But as I worked through this first time of anger in my heart and soul, really believe it was my sinful nature and the enemy crouching at the door of my mind to make a pathway of sin and of anger. And so I confessed that sin. I said to God that I was wrong for doing that, confessed my anger towards God, and I said that I was wrong as a child to say that to my mother. And so I dealt with that a few years ago. But you know what's happened? It's very strange. I can't explain it to you. That memory keeps coming back up. And I think about it when I walk, I think about it when I'm praying, and that memory, the first time of expressing anger, it comes back to my mind again and again for some reason over this last year. And so what I've done to deal with that first memory of anger is I just stop and I sit in the memory and I just invite Jesus into it, and I say, I want you to heal or show up in this memory in whatever way that you so choose. Whatever you want to do. It's kind of like creative, imaginative prayer. You just kind of remember the memory, you invite Jesus into it, and you just kind of see what happens. And then Jesus is rewriting this memory for me. I picture myself as a 6-year-old boy in the kitchen. The words, I hate you, Mom, are like floating in the air in comic book fashion. And then Jesus appears in the memory, which he wasn't there because I was there, but in my mind as I'm praying, Jesus appears as a white-robed being. Can't see him because he's glowing white, and then he's erasing the words, I hate you, Mom, and saying, I love you, and you all love each other, and the words like love or I love you are like all over the kitchen room and over the ceiling, and we embraced each other, and my mother stops crying, and we all embrace each other. I'm like, but that didn't happen. But why am I dreaming this? Well, why is this happening? All I could say is that the God of this world, Jesus Christ, he's so powerful that he can recreate memories and fashion them and give you a brand new meaning to it, because Jesus was actually there. I just didn't see him. I didn't know. And then what has happened is I slightly feel a little bit less angry, a little bit less on edge at times, and I think that I'm able to love other people just a little bit more. So if we want to deal with anger, we have to. And the love of Jesus Christ, this next point, it really says that Jesus Christ, he removes anger in your heart. If you want Jesus to help you love other people, you have to let him into that anger. You also have to let him in to stop believing lies from your past that keeps you from fully loving other people. I mean, we all say to ourselves, I know you say it, we say, I'm not loved, I'm not good enough, no one cares for me, I can't be fully accepted, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not cute enough, I'm not sexy enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, I don't look the way that I want. I mean, we all say those lies to ourselves, and those are lies crouching at the door of our mind that we have to reject. Who is the father of lies? It's Satan. He's the enemy of God, and he wants us to believe things that are not true. We have to accept the truth from the one who is the truth, being Jesus Christ. And when you look at the cross, it invades these lies and it removes this evil. And when you look at the cross, you see perfect truth. And then when we're in church, the church is the pillar and ground of the truth, says 1 Timothy. And we live out the truth. We experience the truth. We experience love. And that's what John tells us in 1 John 3, 16 through 20. John says this, we know what real love is because Jesus gave up his life for us. So we ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. That basically means to die for other people, to crucify yourself, to kill your nature for the sake of other people. In verse 17, if someone has enough money to live well and sees a brother or sister in need but shows no compassion, how can God's love be in that person? Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let us show the truth by our actions. Our actions will show that we belong to the truth. So we will be confident when we stand before God. Even if we feel guilty, God is greater than our feelings, and He knows everything. John says again and again in this chapter, love one another. And this last point is that the love of Jesus Christ enables us to fully love others. When we receive the love of God, the purpose is to sit in it and know it, but and then in turn to love other people so that more people can come to know Jesus Christ. And our church is a place where we should experience love for each other. And when you think of it, we're just kind of a bunch of people from our community that come together that don't know each other, and then we don't even know each other, but then we get to know each other, and we love each other, and we eat with each other, we spend time with each other, we confess into each other, we get along with each other, and our love is a witness for the world. Our world needs to see and experience the true love of God in Jesus Christ. So here's a few things that you can do as we finish up. This first thing is simply to take time to live in the love of God. And it's really simple. All you do is you just make a date with Jesus. You just stop and you turn off your phone. You just get in a quiet place and you don't start asking God for anything. You just sit in His love and you just sit before Him and you say to God, God, I love you. I accept your love, and you love me. I do this some mornings, sit at the kitchen table at 5:30, 6 a.m., just in silence, nobody's awake. Just sit there, and I just try to envision Jesus there with me. Envision Jesus around me. Envision His love there. And in that, we then are able to love other people because He invades our space. He invades our lives. We must allow Jesus to speak to us and enjoy being in His presence. The last thing I want us to do is just simply let Jesus heal whatever needs to be healed. So I invite us just for a minute here, just to pause and stop. And in silence, just close our eyes. There's no smoke and mirrors here, nothing fancy. All it is just invite Jesus into whatever you're facing. Just close your eyes and think of a problem. Think of a person. Think of whatever you're facing. And just let the love of God overwhelm you. Experience His love, and then in turn, you're able to love other people and love other people well. Well, Father, we thank You for the never-ending well of the love of God for all of us. We don't deserve it, but Your Son died for us. He died in our place. And He heals what's broken. He heals us in whatever way that we need that. He drives out our anger, deals with any issue so that we can love other people. So help us to live into that love, Lord. And we thank You just for who You are. And we pray this in Your Son's name. Amen.